And folks, the Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here with your first tropical update of the year. Aren't we all excited about this? This is for May 18th through May 25th. Yes, we are starting these in May yet again this year because, yes, there is something to talk about already in May. We've got our a named system before the start of hurricane season. Again, I think we've had one all but maybe 1 year since 2014, so since we started doing these. So again, these are always, as always, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling. Big thanks to them for helping us out with these. All right, I want to start things off. Before we get to Arthur, I want to talk about the seasonal forecasts that we've got in from some of the institutions, the educational and research institutions across the United States. Colorado State forecast, 16, 8, and 4. Your Penn State forecast is 20 named storms. They don't break them out any further than that, just 20 named storms. I went back and looked at the analog years. This is actually Colorado State did the same thing, but just the analog years. That's all we're doing, just averaging out the analog years. You get 11.8, 7.4, and 3.6, which is a little below average for named storms, but above average for hurricanes and major hurricanes. Of course, the NOAA forecast, that doesn't come out for maybe another couple of weeks now. So what's happening out there right now? Well, not much. I mean, we got some thunderstorm activity down across parts of Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico, but that's loosely associated with a leftover trough. We've got Tropical Storm Arthur out here, which is moving away from the coast of North Carolina, now 55 miles off to the east-northeast of Cape Hatteras. That was as of 1 o'clock Central. Wind at 50, gusting to 65, 993 there, moving northeast at 16. It's not going to continue moving northeast, though. It's actually going to curlicue back around to the south and southeast. As it turns more extratropical, it's going to lose its fully tropical characteristics, and eventually weaken all the way back to a tropical depression before it gets kind of torn apart as it does so. So it's going to hold on to the wind speed, but it is going to be completely lopsided. So half of the storm is going to be completely dry. You can think like Hurricane Nate that came through here a couple of years ago. And the other side is going to be raining and wind gusty and everything until it finally gets ripped apart as it passes back by Bermuda and sags back into the Atlantic. So we've gotten to Arthur, but we've got plenty more names on the list. I hope we don't have to use any of them, but we will, unfortunately. Bertha, Cristobal, Dolly, Eduardo, Faye, Gonzalo, Hannah. Isaias is how you pronounce that one, if I've got my pronouncer right. I'm probably just going to call it Izzy, because Isaias is very difficult for me to say correctly on a regular basis. Josephine, Kyle, Laura, Marco, Nana, which is going to be the nicest sounding hurricane or tropical storm in the history of tropical storms. Hopefully this one's a benign one and out in the Atlantic, because I don't think anyone's going to take a Hurricane Nana seriously. Even if it's a Cat 5, we're all going to say, oh, so what's Hurricane Nana going to do? Is it going to bring us cookies and let us drink soda and stay up past our bedtime? Omar, Paulette, Renee, Sally, Teddy, Vicky, and Wilfred. And again, I hope we don't have to use any of these names, but if the forecasts hold true, or if history is any indication, we're going to have to get through at least 11 more of these things. Where are these things coming from? Well, you can see the origins on here. This is for May and into June. We got our little bullseye into the Gulf of Mexico, but and then where Arthur formed, just off the east coast of Florida and out toward the Bahamas. But usually we're looking a little bit closer to home. As we get into July, we end up looking a little further out. Into August, even further out, you can see we start getting little bullseyes out here into the Caribbean, out into the open Atlantic as we get into September, the peak of hurricane season being September 10th. And then into October, we start looking back closer to home, and into November, we lose all of our bullseyes, and we just kind of play the waiting game to see if anything out there could form. Usually it's slim pickings once we get into November. So you are here. There we are on May 18th. There is a little spike you can see in there, and that's from systems that come gliding through and either get cut off, or you get these little clusters of storms, MCSs that dive into the Gulf of Mexico and sometimes off the East Coast. But notice where we are in comparison to the peak of hurricane season, September 10th. So we're pretty low on the scale as of right now. But something Arthur happening this early in the season shouldn't really be an indication to you at home that this is going to be necessarily a terrible season, because as you can see here, this isn't incredibly rare. I mean, we've had one nearly every year for about the last 6 years. All but I think 1 year. I think 2016 maybe. I'd have to go back and check the record books. But again, there's your tropical update for this week, May 18th through May 25th. And again, as always, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling.